Chapter 1: The shocking change of fate in the edge of a city. There is a bustling and forgotten neighborhood. The streets here are narrow and messy. The houses on either side are dilapidated, the walls are covered with dappled graffiti, and the air is filled with the smell of humidity and decay. Growing up here, 19-year-old Janie lacked the warmth of a family since childhood. She had to mix with the street gangsters, learn to smoke, and disguise her inner vulnerability with a rebellious appearance. Deep in her heart, she has always longed for love and care, but the cold environment around her has gradually buried this desire. It was a cloudy afternoon, and the damp air was breathless. A black limousine slowly drove into the rundown neighborhood, breaking the tranquility and hustle. A well-dressed couple, Henry and Victoria, and a gentle girl, Isabella, got out of the car. The three of them were out of tune with their surroundings, like a harsh light illuminating the gray corner. When Isabella got out of the car, she gently covered her nose with her hand, and a hint of disgust flashed on her face. Her eyes quickly swept across the dilapidated environment around her, and then she tightly held Victoria's arm. At this time, they saw Jenny, who was laughing and playing with the gangsters. Isabella frowned slightly and showed a worried look on her face, and said softly, "Mom and Dad, this is Sister Jenny. She looks so pitiful, living in such an environment. Let's take her home quickly." So that the words seemed to be full of kindness, but the slightly raised corner of her mouth was filled with a hint of unnoticed pride. Henry and Victoria's eyes fell on Jenny, and when they saw the exaggerated tattoos on her arms, the messy hair, and the ripped clothes, their eyes were instantly filled with shock and disappointment. "You are Jenny?" Henry's voice trembled slightly, with a hint of disbelief and hard-to-conceal disgust. After seeing Jenny nod gently to confirm, Henry looked cold, obviously unwilling to talk anymore and didn't want to have more contact. In desperation, Victoria had to step forward quickly, walked up to Jenny, and patiently told the reason for their visit. When Jenny found out that she was the wrong daughter, and that Isabella, who was cared for by her parents, took over the life she should have had, she was stunned. Her mind went blank, as if the whole world had collapsed at this moment. There was a flash of surprise and anticipation in her eyes, and she stepped forward unconsciously, wanting to walk towards the biological parents who suddenly appeared, wanting to embrace them and welcome a new life. However, Victoria subconsciously protected Isabella behind her, her face full of vigilance. Isabella also took advantage of the situation to hide behind Victoria, whispering, "Sister won't hurt me, will you?" This sentence was like a catalyst, which made Henry and Victoria hate Jane even more. Henry frowned, took out a stack of money from his wallet, threw it at Jane, and said coldly, "Your life is completely different from ours. Take this money, and don't bother us in the future." Jenny stood frozen in place, her mind blank, completely unable to understand what was happening in front of her. How could things turn out like this? When she reacted, Jenny glared at the unfamiliar parents angrily, tears welling up in her eyes. She could never have imagined that the family love she had been thinking about day and night would come in such a cruel way and end in such a decisive way. "Why are you? Just because of what I look like now?" Recalling Victoria's care for Isabella just now, her voice trembled with anger and grievance, but the only response to her was the roar of the car going away. Jenny looked at the shadow of the distant car, wiped away her tears, and vowed in her heart that she would make these people regret. And her eyes revealed a kind of tenacity and unyielding. At this time, although she was filled with anger and pain, a flame that changed her fate was also ignited deep in her heart. Chapter 2: The struggle in the dark. Jenny huddled in the dilapidated and dim rental house, lonely and helpless. The sudden intrusion of her biological parents and Isabella was like a ray of dawn penetrating the haze, allowing her to see a ray of hope in the lonely quagmire. But before this hope took root, it was ruthlessly extinguished by the wind and rain of reality, leaving only despair and sadness in her heart. The rental house was small and dark, and the walls were covered with mottled water stains, as if they were tears left by the years. In the corners of the roof, several walls had peeled off, revealing the gray masonry inside. The windows were broken glass, barely covered by a few rags, and the cold wind poured in through the gaps, making a whining sound. The only bed was dilapidated, and the mattress was covered with stains and gave off a musty smell. The small table next to the bed was missing a foot, and the light was dim and dim, teetering on a dilapidated lamp. Jenny sat by the bed, staring at the ceiling with empty eyes, feeling confused and helpless. At this time, there was a loud noise outside the door, and it was the street gangsters who came to find her. The man with yellow hair in the lead slapped the door hard and shouted, "Jenny, come out. Let's go to the alley to smoke a cigarette and have a good time." Jenny hesitated for a moment, remembering the muddled days with them before, and her heart welled up with disgust. She took a deep breath, walked to the door, and said loudly, "I'm not going. I don't want to live like that anymore. I want to live a normal life, work and live like an ordinary person." The gangsters outside the door were stunned. The yellow-haired man frowned and said impatiently, "Jenny, don't be stupid. What kind of serious job can you find here? It's better to be at ease with us." Jenny gritted her teeth and said firmly, "No, I've decided. You go. Don't come to me again." After saying that, she leaned against the door and slowly sat on the ground, tears flowing unconsciously. But she knew that this was the first step to change her destiny, and she couldn't look back. From then on, Jenny started running around looking for a job. She walked into one store after another in the only neat clothes she had. When she walked into a small restaurant to apply for a waiter, the boss only glanced at the tattoo on her arm, then frowned impatiently and refused. "We are a serious business place. If we don't recruit someone like you, we will scare customers away." When she went to the supermarket to apply for a cashier job, the manager looked her up and down and curled her lips with disgust. "Your dress is too exaggerated and does not meet the image of our supermarket. What we need are employees who look serious and reliable." Every rejection was like a heavy hammer, hitting Jenny's heart fiercely, filling her heart with frustration. But she did not give up, and still went out early and returned late every day, shuttling through the streets and alleys of the city, looking for work everywhere. On this day, Jenny failed to find a job again, and she walked down the street with heavy steps in a low mood. While waiting for a traffic light at an intersection, a luxury sports car sped past her, but suddenly stopped not far away. The door opened, and Isabella got out of the car, surrounded by a few rich children. When Isabella saw Jenny, a smug smile flashed on her face, and then she pretended to be puzzled and said, "Hey, I seem to have seen you somewhere." Her voice was gentle, but with obvious sarcasm. Jenny's body froze slightly. She didn't expect Isabella to pretend that she didn't know her. Before she could speak, Isabella looked at Jenny up and down, frowned and said, "Look at this dress. I don't know which corner it came from. I really don't know where the courage came from to wander on the street." A rich boy approached Isabella, with a look of anxiety and disdain on his face, and persuaded, "Isabella, with your status, how can you know such a poor ghost? Don't waste time on this kind of person. Our party is about to start." Another person echoed, showing obvious disdain on his face, and curled his lips. The corners of Isabella's mouth rose slightly, showing a proud smile, and a few people then swaggered away. Jenny's face was flushed, anger and grievance intertwined in her heart. She clenched her fists. Her fingernails sank deep into her palms, fought back her tears, and turned to walk away quickly. She knew that at this moment, she was not able to refute them, but she vowed in her heart that one day, she would make these people look at her with admiration. Back in the rental house, Jenny lay on the bed, looking at the ceiling. The unwillingness in her heart grew stronger, and there was a kind of determination in her eyes. She knew that she still had a long way to go, but she would never give up. Chapter 3. The turn of fate. When Jenny was almost completely overwhelmed by the weight of life, the turning point of her fate came quietly. It was a sunny weekend, and Jenny was walking in the park as usual, trying to soothe her exhaustion and anxiety. The park was full of people, children were laughing and playing on the grass, and couples were walking hand in hand. It was a peaceful scene. However, Jenny's heart was extremely heavy, and her eyes revealed confusion and helplessness. Suddenly, a cry came from not far away. An old man suddenly fainted by the lake, and the people around him were frightened by the sudden situation. They just stood by and pointed, but no one dared to come forward to help. The old man was the chairperson of a well-known local company, William. When William woke up, he saw Jenny standing by, and his eyes were full of gratitude. He said in a weak but gentle voice, "Thanks to you, child, otherwise my old bones would have been explained there. Janie scratched her head a little embarrassed and said softly, "Don't say that. Anyone would do it." William looked at Jenny, and from her tired but stubborn face, he seemed to see himself who had worked hard. He continued, "Child, I can see that you are a kind and brave person. I want to give you a chance to work in my company. Although it is only the lowest position, as long as you work hard, there will always be room for improvement." When Jenny heard this, she was both surprised and worried. She was surprised that she might finally be able to get rid of the current embarrassing life, and she was worried that her previous life experience made her afraid that she would not be able to do the job. She lowered her head and whispered, "But I have never worked in a serious company, and I am afraid that I will not be able to do it well." William smiled and encouraged her. "It's okay, child. Everyone has a first time. As long as you are willing to learn, I believe you can do it." Jenny recalled the ridicule of the gangsters who said she would be like this in her life, and Isabella's smug smile, as if to tell her that she would never be able to compare to herself. These images kept coming to her mind. She gritted her teeth, looked up at William firmly and said, "Okay, I'm willing to try. I won't let you down." After entering the company, Jenny is like a dry sponge, desperately absorbing knowledge and experience. She always arrives at the company first and leaves last every day, and the lights in the office often accompany her until late at night. From the most trivial tasks of organizing documents and answering the phone to assisting colleagues with various complex tasks, Jenny is meticulous. She never misses any opportunity to learn, and when she encounters problems that she does not understand, she takes the initiative to ask colleagues for advice. Colleagues were full of doubts about the tattooed girl at first, but Jane gradually won everyone's approval with her efforts and seriousness. Once, the company was about to hold an important business event, and the colleague in charge of planning suddenly fell ill. Time was running out, and everyone fell into a panic. Jenny plucked up her courage and took the initiative to stand up and ask for help. She stayed up for several nights, consulted a large amount of information, and carefully planned the plan. On the day of the event, everything went smoothly according to Jenny's plan, which was a complete success, and the company's performance was greatly improved as a result. William began to notice this girl with unlimited potential and decided to focus on training her and hand over more important projects to her. Jenny's life finally ushered in a ray of light, and she was one step closer to her goal, and her inner self-confidence was gradually increasing. Chapter 4. The coming of love. With the gradual success of Jenny's career, her life has also begun to become colorful. In the company, she is no longer the newcomer who has been questioned, but has become an indispensable member of the team with her own efforts and talents. The attitude of colleagues towards her has changed from initial suspicion and rejection to today's recognition and respect, which has filled Jenny with a sense of achievement and made her more confident and cheerful. At an industry summit, Jenny attended as a representative of the company. The venue was decorated with high-end atmosphere, and elites from all walks of life gathered together. Everyone was dressed in exquisite formal clothes and confidently exchanged industry insights. Jenny wore a capable professional dress, and the slim tailoring highlighted her neatness and confidence. Her eyes revealed professionalism and calmness, and she moved freely among the crowd, exchanging work experience and views on the development of the industry with different people. At this moment, her eyes were attracted by a handsome young man, a promising young entrepreneur, Eric. Eric stood in the crowd, tall and straight, with an extraordinary temperament, and his every move exuded a mature and stable charm. He was talking to several colleagues around him, with a confident smile on his face, and his eyes revealed his enthusiasm and dedication to his career. Eric also noticed Jenny, and her unique temperament and confident smile made his eyes shine. In such a competitive and utilitarian occasion, Jenny's sincerity and candor were particularly dazzling. Eric took the initiative to greet Jenny, and he bowed slightly, with a polite smile on his face, and said, "Hello, I'm Eric. I heard your opinion just now, and I admire it. Can you communicate with me?" Jenny was a little surprised, but quickly showed a friendly smile and responded, "Of course, I'm also looking forward to communicating with you." The two talked very happily and found that they agreed on many ideas, from market trends to business management, from innovative ideas to social responsibility. Their views collided with each other and sparked a wonderful spark. Since then, Eric has been in frequent contact with Jenny. He will message Jenny after work to inquire about her work progress and share interesting things about his life. He will also patiently provide advice and help to Jenny when she encounters work problems. He will order a takeaway for Jenny when she works late and attach a note with encouraging words. On her birthday, he will carefully prepare a romantic surprise party for her. The party is filled with flowers and balloons that she likes. When Jenny pushes open the door, Eric looks at her affectionately with flowers in his hands, and his eyes are full of love. At first, Jenny was full of vigilance and worry about love because of her past experience, and she was afraid of being hurt again. Every time Eric asked her out, she would find all kinds of excuses to shirk. When she received Eric's gift, she would also feel uneasy and feel that she did not deserve such a beautiful relationship. But Eric did not give up because of Jenny's refusal. He used his sincerity and patience to melt the ice in Jenny's heart little by little. He would silently accompany Jenny when she was in a low mood and listen to her talk about her troubles. He would be happier and proud of her when she achieved results. On a romantic night, Eric takes Jenny to the highest point of the city, where an observation deck overlooks the city's brightly lit night scene. Colorful lights twinkle like stars, vehicles shuttle like fireflies, and the breeze blows, bringing a hint of coolness. Eric's heart beats a little faster. He takes a deep breath, turns round, looks Jenny seriously in the eyes, and says, "Jenny, from the first time I saw you, I was deeply attracted to you. Your bravery, your hard work, your sincerity, all fascinated me. I know you have suffered a lot, but I want you to know that in the days to come, I will always be with you and protect you. Would you like to be my girlfriend?" Jenny looked at the sincere man in front of her, and her heart was warm and moved like never before. Thinking back on all the care Eric had given her during this time, and the happy times spent together, her eyes were slightly wet. She finally let go of her guard, smiled and nodded, and said softly, "I do." At that moment, the lights of the city seemed to shine for them, and the sweetness of love filled the air. With Eric's support and encouragement, Jenny works harder in her career. They participate in various business activities together and share the joys and sorrows of work with each other. When they encounter difficulties, they will discuss solutions together, encourage each other, and move forward hand in hand. When they achieve results, they will celebrate together and enjoy the joy of success. Jenny's life is full of happiness and hope. The nourishment of love makes her more confident and cheerful, and her smile is getting brighter and brighter, as if all the hardships are in the past, and the days ahead are full of infinite possibilities. Chapter 5. The intensification of contradictions will watch Jenny's career progress and sweet love, and her heart was swallowed by the flames of jealousy. She still maintained a graceful and decent image on the surface, but when the night was quiet, she couldn't sleep when she thought of Jenny's current scenery. In her heart, Jenny's excellence was not only a provocation to her, but also a threat to her. She knew that the better Jenny developed, the more likely Henry and Victoria were to find Jenny back home. The thought that she might be ruthlessly abandoned by the family she once relied on and lose everything she had now made Isabella feel extremely terrified and hopeless. This fear and jealousy gradually distorted her heart and made her start to do anything to suppress Jenny. She knew that as long as Jenny kept moving forward, her position was at stake. So she decided to take the initiative and orchestrate a conspiracy to ruin Jenny's reputation. She first frequented Henry and Victoria's apartment, adding fuel and lies every time. "Mom and Dad, did you know that Jenny got to her current position in the company by ingratiating herself with her boss? And she was ruthless in excluding her colleagues. And her boyfriend, I heard that she also deliberately planned to get close, just to pave the way for her career. This love is an orchestrated deception." She described it vividly, with rich expressions and gestures, so that Henry and Victoria's misunderstanding of Jenny deepened. Henry and Victoria already had a grudge against Jane's rebellious image, coupled with Isabella's provocation day after day. Their attitude towards Jane became even worse, and their hearts were full of dissatisfaction and doubts about Jane. It was the mood that set the stage for a major business gathering in the industry. The gathering was held in the most luxurious hotel in the city. The interior of the hotel was splendidly decorated, and the crystal chandeliers glowed brightly, illuminating the entire hall. Elites from all walks of life in fancy clothes held wine glasses, chatted and laughed amidst delicate music, and exchanged trade secrets and cooperation intentions. As a core member of the company, Jenny was naturally invited to participate. She was dressed in a well-tailored evening dress and walked confidently through the crowd. However, when she inadvertently caught a glimpse of Henry, Victoria, and Isabella in the corner, the originally relaxed and happy mood fell to the bottom. I saw Isabella holding Henry's arm intimately, with a happy smile on her face, and Victoria looked at them lovingly. The happy scene of the family stung Jenny's heart. Although she had found solace in her career and love, the pain of being abandoned by her biological parents was still buried deep in her heart, and the scene before her was a flood of painful memories. Holding back her discomfort, Jenny quietly turned around and walked out of the hall alone to the garden outside the hotel. The garden was quiet and peaceful, and the breeze was gently blowing, bringing bursts of flowers, but Jenny had no intention of appreciating it. She leaned against the garden railing and looked at the twinkling stars in the night sky, trying to calm her emotions. Unfortunately, Henry and Victoria also came to the garden to breathe, and saw Jenny at a glance. Henry's face turned gloomy in an instant, and his eyes were full of accusations. "Why are you here? Don't think that you can do whatever you want with a little success in your career. Your nature is hard to change," Victoria also echoed. "Yes, look at you now. You still look like you don't know what to do compared to Isabella. It's a world of difference." Isabella seemed to be aware of the movement here and followed. She pretended to be anxious and concerned, walked quickly to Henry and Victoria, and said softly, "Mom and Dad, don't be angry. My sister may not have done it on purpose. She must have her own troubles." But the slightly raised corners of her mouth and the smug flash in her eyes revealed her true thoughts. These words not only did not help to ease the effect, but made Henry and Victoria more convinced of Jenny's unbearable situation and more disgusted with her. Jenny was angry and aggrieved. Her eyes were red, and she said loudly, "Why do you always believe Isabella's words so easily? For so many years, you have never really understood me, cared about me, and accused me as soon as you met. Are you my biological parents?" Henry pointed at Jenny angrily, his fingers trembling. "Look at what you said. Why are we not your parents? You obviously have a little achievement now, so you can't look down on your parents." Victoria also cried from the side. "How did we give birth to such an ignorant daughter as you? Isabella is the real well-behaved and sensible child." Jenny's heart was completely cold. She didn't expect that even though she had tried so hard, her biological parents were still full of prejudice against her. She gritted her teeth, held back her tears, turned around and left the garden without looking back. At this moment, the resentment and unwillingness in her heart reached a peak, and she decided to cut off ties with the family, and secretly vowed that she would make her parent and Isabella regret what they had done, and also strengthened her determination to prove her worth by relying on her own strength. Chapter 6. Exposing the truth. Isabella saw Jenny's conflict with her parents at the business party getting more intense, and the fire of jealousy in her heart not only did not go out, but burned even more vigorously. She knew that if she did not completely suppress Jenny, the evil in her heart would not be able to disappear, and she would not be able to continue to maintain the perfect image in the hearts of her parents. So she began to orchestrate a larger conspiracy, targeting a project that was crucial to the company that Jenny was in charge of. This project has been in the works for a long time, and once it succeeds, Jenny's position in the company will be even more stable, and she may even get a promotion opportunity. Isabella bribed an employee in Jenny's company who was dissatisfied with her salary, and the two met secretly in a dim cafe. Isabella wore an exaggerated pair of sunglasses, deliberately lowered her voice, and pushed a thick stack of cash in front of the employee, her eyes full of viciousness. "As long as you do as I say, tamper with the key data in the project documents, and let this project fail, the money will be yours, and there will be more benefits in the future." The employee hesitated for a moment, and a trace of struggle flashed in his eyes, but in the end, under the temptation of money, he slowly reached out and took the stack of money. Before the project was about to be delivered, Jenny was doing the final review of the document as usual. Her eyes were focused and serious, not missing any details. Suddenly, her brows furrowed tightly, and a set of key data in the document caught her attention. With her wealth of experience and keen intuition, she immediately noticed that there was a problem with this set of data. Jenny was shocked. She knew the importance of this set of data, and if it went wrong, the entire project could be at risk of failure. Jenny didn't dare to slack off at all, and she quickly launched an investigation. She first found the colleague in charge of this part of the data, who was confused and insisted that the data she had entered was correct. Jenny didn't believe it easily, and she began to carefully check every relevant original data, one by one. In order to find the truth, she didn't sleep for days and nights, and the lights in the office stayed on all night. During the investigation, she found some clues, all of which pointed in one direction: Isabella. At the same time, an insider who was involved in the case of holding the wrong child has been condemned by conscience for many years. He originally intended to bury the secret deep in his heart, but fate always seems to play tricks on people. One time, he happened to see the story of Janie in the coverage. He learned that Janie had lived a lonely life before, and it was through her own unremitting efforts that she had achieved what she was today. This made him feel guilty in an instant, and every picture pierced his heart like a needle. Not long after, at a party, he overheard Isabella talking proudly with others about how to frame Janie. He was shocked by the vicious words and tactics. The scales in his heart began to swing violently between the thoughts he had wanted to hide for many years and the injustice suffered by Janie. After days and nights of intense ideological struggle, driven by conscience, he finally summoned up the courage and decided to stand up and reveal the truth of the year. Jenny followed the clues and found the cafe where Isabella had a secret meeting with the employee. By retrieving the surveillance video, she finally had ironclad evidence that Isabella had tampered with the data. Just as she was about to confront Isabella with the evidence, the insider also contacted her and told the truth about the wrong child. It turned out that Isabella's parents were greedy for wealth and orchestrated a conspiracy to exchange their daughter and Jenny, and then mercilessly abandoned Jenny. Henry and Victoria were struck by lightning after learning this series of truths. They could never have imagined that Isabella, whom they had always regarded as the apple of their palms, was so scheming, and Janie, who had been ruthlessly abandoned and constantly blamed by themselves, was the one who had really suffered the grievances. Henry slumped on the sofa, his head in his hands, his face full of regret. Why are we so confused? We have misunderstood Janie for so many years, and we are sorry for her. Victoria also burst into tears and sobbed. We are so stupid. We were blinded by Isabella and committed an unforgivable wrong to Janie. Isabella panicked when she learned that her plot had been exposed. She tried to destroy the evidence, but it was too late. When Jenny stood in front of her with the evidence, her eyes were full of fear and despair. Jenny looked at her coldly and said, "Do you think you can beat me like this? What you have done has finally been repaid." Isabella collapsed to the ground and burst into tears, knowing that all her disguises had been completely revealed. The police quickly intervened in the investigation. As the evidence continued to accumulate, Isabella's parents were also implicated. It turned out that they had provided support and cover for Isabella's conspiracy behind the scenes. In the face of conclusive evidence, Isabella and her parents could not deny it. In the end, Isabella was arrested on suspicion of commercial framing, data tampering, and other charges. Her parents were arrested according to law for participating in the conspiracy to hold the wrong child and assisting Isabella in committing a crime. In court, they paid a heavy price for their actions, and what awaited them would be a long prison sentence. And Janie finally ushered in the day when the truth came out. Chapter 7. Reconciliation and Renewal. After the truth came out, Jenny's life seemed to be illuminated by a ray of light, opening a new chapter, standing at a new starting point in life. All kinds of past things came to her mind like a tide, and her heart was full of mixed emotions. Those long years of misunderstanding and abandonment turned into indescribable complex emotions at this moment. Years of grievances and pain have snowed, but in the face of her family who have hurt her deeply, her heart is still torn and struggling. Henry and Victoria were completely overwhelmed with guilt, and they put aside all their affairs to inquire about Janie's whereabouts. They knew how stupid and cruel their actions had been, and the damage could not be easily erased. But they still tried their best to get Janie's forgiveness. After countless disappointments, they finally waited for the daughter who made them worry about them day and night and was full of guilt. The moment Janie saw Henry and Victoria, her footsteps stopped abruptly, as if she had been frozen. The painful memories of the past were like a raging tide, instantly drowning her. Henry walked forward slowly, his hair grayer than before, his face full of haggard and remorse. His voice was trembling, almost choked. "Janie, we were wrong. We have been so unfair to you for so many years. Can you forgive us?" Victoria was already sobbing. Tears kept falling. "Daughter, we know we were wrong. You have suffered all these years. We are sorry for you." Jenny looked at the two people in front of her who were once unfamiliar, but now full of guilt, and the resentment in her heart was like the snow in spring, gradually melting away in their repentance, leaving only exhaustion and emotion. She took a deep breath and said slowly, "For so many years, I have woken up crying at night, and I don't understand why you are doing this to me. But now, I don't want to be bound by the past anymore." Her voice was calm, but there was a sense of relief after the vicissitudes of life. After her rest, Isabella spent a long and painful period of reflection in prison. She remembered what she had done. Full of remorse, she asked someone to send a message to Jenny expressing her deep regret. After much consideration, Jenny decided to visit her in prison. When Isabella saw Jenny walk in, tears welled up in her eyes, and her voice was sobbing. "Jenny, I was wrong. I was really wrong. I was jealous of you and did so much to hurt you." Jenny looked at her calmly and gently. "I'm not here to accuse you, but to tell you that I forgive you. I hope you can be reformed in prison and become a new person." After Isabella heard this, she cried even harder, and Jenny's tolerance made her feel ashamed. After reconciling with her family, Janie's life gradually returned to normal. Her relationship with Eric grew deeper, and the two began to plan their future lives together. Eric carefully planned a marriage proposal ceremony at the site of the industry summit where they first met. On that day, Eric arrived early and set up the venue himself. Every detail was full of his love for Janie. The venue was filled with Janie's favorite flowers, and the surrounding lights were soft and warm. When Janie arrived, Eric knelt on one knee, holding a shining ring in his hand, and said affectionately, "Janie, from the first moment I saw you, I knew you were the most important person in my life. Are you willing to marry me and let me protect you for the rest of my life?" Jenny's eyes flashed with happy tears, and she agreed to Eric's proposal without hesitation. Not long after, Jenny and Eric held a grand wedding. The wedding was beautifully arranged, surrounded by flowers, and the guests sent their best wishes. Henry and Victoria stood by, their faces full of relief and blessing. Jenny took Eric's hand and walked slowly down the red carpet, her face brimming with a happy smile. She knew that she had finally ushered in her own happy life. The past hardships became a stepping stone in her life, making her cherish what she had now. With her courage and persistence, she rewrote the trajectory of destiny and opened a new chapter in her life. Her story has become a legend told by those around her, inspiring everyone who is struggling in difficulties to move forward bravely. Since then, Jenny has continued to shine in her career. With her wisdom and hard work, she has led the team to achieve one success after another. She has also actively participated in public welfare undertakings, using her experience to encourage those in distress, so that more people can feel the power of hope. Jenny and Eric's small home is full of laughter. They travel together, experience every bit of life together, and create beautiful memories together.